I've always wondered why we love stories so much. And I'm about to share with you a story that changed my life. When I was 17, I attended a seminar, and the speaker shared the most amazing story about two boys who loved to ice skate. And there was no skating rink in their community, but when the lake would freeze over in the winter, they'd go skating. One day they were skating, and the ice cracked underneath one of the boys. And his friend tried to get over to help him, but by the time he came over, the kid fell through the ice and was drowning underneath the water. And his friend was freaking out. He looked in the distance. He saw a giant tree. He skated over, pulled off a giant branch, skated back over, started smashing and thrashing at the ice, pulled his friend out. By the time the ambulance came, thank God they were able to save his life. And one of the younger ambulance members just sat there scratching his head, saying, I don't understand how this small kid, this scrawny kid, pulled off this giant branch and smashed through the thick ice. It doesn't make any sense. And one of the older ambulance members was smiling. He said, I know how he did it. How? He said there was no one there to tell him that he couldn't. And the speaker, when I was 17, looked at us and said, every single one of us has this voice in our head that dreams and says you can. You can do amazing things with your life. But we also have this voice that says, no, you can't. Who do you think you are to have these big dreams? You can't do it. And almost everyone listens to that voice that says you can't. But in this audience, there is going to be one person, the one, who listens to that voice and says, yes, I can. When I got back to my car, I was thinking in my head, like, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to do it. But then this voice, small, still, quiet voice, became very loud and suddenly said, no, you can't. What makes you think you can do anything great with your life? There are great people and there are people like you and me. And great people are born different. They're special. We can't do these types of amazing things. And at the time, I didn't think it was possible to do anything great with my life. So what changed? Why today am I an author, a public speaker, the CEO of my own company? I get to work in the field of thought leadership. I work with some of the most successful people in the world. What changed? What changed is, when I was 18, I had a very tragic near-death experience. I remember one day I was walking and I felt this pain in my stomach. And I went to my head and I lost consciousness. And they rushed me to the hospital. And by the time I woke up, the doctors said, thank God you're okay. We don't know what happened. And I thought it was a fluke accident. And then the next week it happened again. And for 6 months this was happening. And every single day I thought maybe this was going to be my last day in the world. And once you have this gift of this wake-up call, because this was the most tragic thing that ever happened in my entire life, and thank God I'm okay now, but when you realize you're going to die eventually, you get to value and treasure every moment in life, and you also get to start questioning and say, what can life be like if it was everything that it could be? And I basically had a midlife crisis at the age of 18, and I woke up and I began asking myself, like, what am I living for? Like, what am I doing with my life? And what story am I telling myself about myself? And I decided to devote my life to the pursuit of wisdom, to ideas, to spirituality, to skill building. And I studied at Harvard and University of Chicago. I got 4 graduate degrees. And I set out to answer one question. What makes a great person great? And through my journey, I came to realize one thing more than any other. It's the stories that we believe that shape our lives. And I found that the greats aren't different than you and me. They just think differently. They tell themselves different stories. And I've worked with some of the most successful people in the world in every area of life. And I can tell you that they are not different. They tell themselves different stories. They believe different things about themselves in the world. And it's true in every area of your life. It's true about your identity, how you believe regarding your own personal potential, whether or not you can do something great with your life. It's true how you view money and business. Is money good? Is it bad? It's true about how you view relationships. It's true about how you view physical and mental health, intellectual potential, spiritual potential. And here's the key question that I began to realize is the key question to ask every single day. When you look in the mirror, you want to ask yourself, are we telling ourselves a great story? But now I have to take a step back and ask a more fundamental question, which is, what makes a great story great? You see, there are certain stories that echo for eternity. They reverberate virally through human consciousness. They're stories that have always and will always be the fundamental story that every single one of us is attracted to. Think about your favorite stories. Think about your favorite novels, your favorite movies. What comes to mind? You know, the Bible is the most viral book of all time. Think about Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, Star Wars. Like, why do these stories have such a deep existential impact on humanity? What makes a great story great? So take, for example, the following story, right? I'm sure everyone can relate. Someone wakes up in the morning, they blink, they take a deep breath, they get out of bed, they get dressed, they put on their shoes, they tie their shoes, they eat breakfast, they go to work, they come home, they relax, they go to sleep. That's not a story, right? No one wants to hear that story because nothing happened. So what makes a great story? What's the kind of story that just draws us in, that we are obsessed with? It's the hero story. It's a story that has a setup where someone starts at the bottom and maybe they have a dream, maybe they have some hope, maybe they want to do something with their life, but everything is falling apart around them. Right? Nothing seems to be working out. They're facing challenge after challenge and life just seems awful. And then there's the rise, the spark of inspiration. Something happens in their life. Maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's their spouse, maybe it's the creator of the universe, but something happens and they start to develop their vision for their future. They start to rise to greatness. They overcome struggle and challenge. And you have the Rocky montage in the background and they're almost there and they're climbing up the mountain and then everything falls apart again. And just before they're about to get to that destination, their life falls apart, they're about to give up, but then they remember why they started. And because they remember that there's another spark of inspiration, they push through, they get back up, they get to the end, and they're finally at the point where the dream has become a reality. And this is the hero's story. This is the story that every single one of us are attracted to. And here's the thing, when we read these novels, when we watch these films, when we see these stories, we want to be the hero of the story. We identify with the hero of the story. But then again, we have this voice in the back of our head that says, you're just not the hero. Like, the reason why we love going into that fantasy world is because it gives us a chance to say, maybe I am the hero, but then we wake up back to the life that we actually live and we say, that's just not me. And here's an idea that I think is worth sharing. It's an idea I think can echo eternally in the most fundamentally powerful way, which is, what if we rethink the hero story? In the hero story, there's always one chosen one, the one. Right? And we always want to be the one, but we're like, we're not the one. But what if we are all the one? What if every single one of us can become the hero of our story, can become great, and the only thing stopping us is that voice in our head that says you can't? So here's the real question we should be asking ourselves is, what would life be like if we all chose to become the hero of our story? If we all believed that we were all the one, if we all became all that we could become? Now, I want to share the most amazing story that ever happened to me. Usually when I get up to speak, if I give a keynote speech, there's usually an MC or someone introducing me, and there's usually 2 microphones on stage. One microphone is there already set up, that's for me, and the other microphone is for the person introducing me. I'll never forget, one time I was speaking and there was only one microphone on stage. And I assumed it would just be fine, the person who would introduce me would walk off, I'd get the microphone, I'd give my speech. I'll never forget what happened. I got to the podium. I was ready to be introduced. The person who was introducing me was the CEO of the company I was speaking at. And the CEO introduced me. And as I got up on stage, instead of handing me the microphone, the CEO kept the microphone and walked a little bit away from me and turned to the audience and said something that I'll never forget. Before we get to that, I want to share what I think are the 5 keys to becoming the hero of your story. Because if it's really possible to become the hero of your story, you have to have a roadmap. You have to know how to do it. And the question is really, you want to ask yourself is there a formula? Is there something that every single great person does that I can do? So here are the 5 keys that I found with my team, with my life, and my experience to be the fundamental 5 keys of the hero story. Number 1, you have to have a vision for your life. You have to have a goal. You can take the greatest archer in the world, an Olympic champion, gold medalist. If you blindfold them and turn them around, they're not going to be able to hit the target because they can't see it. If you want to achieve something great with your life, you have to have a vision. But if you want to have a vision, you have to have a real deep why and purpose. Right? If you're going to create a goal for your life, you have to say, why am I trying to achieve this? Because, as Viktor Frankl said, he who has a why can overcome anyhow. If you have a why to your life, if you know why you're doing this, you can put in the work and overcome the struggle when it gets hard. But how do you figure out your purpose? How do you discover your why? So number 3 is you have to get self-aware. You have to get to know yourself. And that means getting to know your talents and your skills. That means getting to know your struggles, what you're good at, what you're not good at. It means getting to know your story. Who are you? Spending time with yourself, getting to know yourself. But to believe that you are worthy of going on this journey, of spending time developing and harnessing your potential, you have to have number 4, which is the right environment. And that's really twofold. You have to have the right external environment, right? There are always going to be people that are going to try to hold you back, those negative voices telling you can't. You got to get rid of those people. But more importantly, you have to figure out how to get rid of the negative voice inside your head. You have to feed your mind positivity, encouragement. You have to build your confidence. You have to believe that you can do this. But number 5, and this is the most important, most people who strive for greatness fail because their vision is small in the sense that it's all about themselves. If you want to achieve something great with your life has to be devoted to something larger than yourself. Whether it's your family, whether it's your community, whether it's God, the creator of the universe, you have to figure out how to devote your life to something infinite, to something that transcends yourself. Because then when you want to give up, when it's getting really hard, you'll find the energy, the courage, the drive, the willpower to push through. And that is the hero's journey. Finding something extraordinary to devote your life to, going all in, building something amazing with your life. Now, why can't I end? Why can't I end the speech? Because we're in the middle of a story, right? The microphone story. Everyone's still wondering what happened. What did the CEO say to the audience? Like, I want to hear. So who cares? Why can't I just end my speech in the middle of the story? Because a great story doesn't just have a setup and then go nowhere. Right? You don't start a joke and not give the punchline. You don't start a story and not have an extraordinary journey towards a conclusion. The only purpose of a setup is if it goes somewhere meaningful, is if it goes towards an extraordinary destination. Well, isn't that the same thing with life? Like, we're all here right now. We're all alive. That's our setup. We're here. But in order for our story to become an extraordinary story, the setup needs to have an aim, needs to have a goal, a direction. You have to start figuring out how to turn your life into a great story, believing you can become the hero of your story. And everyone always asks me the same thing, like, how do you start? Like, what's the best way to actually start? And I always say the same thing. If you just for a moment imagine that your life is a film, and you are being filmed every single day as you go through your life, and the film is called the story of how you became the hero of your story, then right now ask yourself, what would the hero of your story do next? Because the moment that you take your life seriously, you can actually ask that question, and then you say, like, that thing I've always wanted to do, I'm going to do that now. Like, my life is going to turn into this great story. And, you know, people always say, you got to tell us, what did the CEO actually tell you? Like, what did the CEO tell the audience in the end of that story? It was the most extraordinarily powerful thing I've ever heard in my entire life. The CEO is about to hand me the mic to give a keynote speech. I'm the speaker. But before I give the speech, he turns to his company. He turns to the audience and says, don't wait for a microphone to start writing your story. And don't wait for a microphone to think that you have a story worth telling. And that's the most powerful thing, to believe you have a story worth telling. So I'll leave you with this message. Pick up the pen and write your story. And then pick up the mic and share it with the world. And to be a real hero, find a way to then inspire others to do the same.